Today I want to leave a thought with you. Did you wake up this morning, fight with your partner, perhaps your child? Are you just discontent with someone in your life and you don't quite know why, or you know exactly why? It's irrespective. I want to share with you a little story, just brief. 4 years ago, my middle child, Zandre, and I went to Namibia to see where I grew up. And on our first night there, we went to a club because his brother and their friends were at Earth Dance, a trance party in Cape Town. So of course he wanted to have the nightlife experience too. What a glorious night. It so happened that as we walked in, there had been a pajama party earlier that evening. And him being 19 and a half that day, the girlies were dressed in very little, corsets, nighties. And from his 6'2" frame, he looked down at me and said, "Mom, you the shit. I'm in heaven." And he started taking pictures of all these girls and sending them through to his brother and friends, trying to get them to envy him. And I was so grateful because on the plane, on the way there, I'd said to him, "Zandre, in Namibia, there are loads of Germans. You are 6'2", you have dark hair, green eyes like your mother, and you're going to stand out. And I bet you these girls are going to chase you." So it's exactly what happened on that night. We had such fun. And after a while, he came to me and he said, "Mom, I'd like you to share brandy special with me. I don't drink brandy. I'm a whiskey and water and red wine person myself." So thankfully, I drank my drink extremely slowly because I didn't like the taste of it. And it wasn't long after that I started feeling extremely ill and felt that I needed to leave. Zandre asked me if he could stay a little while longer, and I agreed because 2 of my friends were going to stay there with him. Strange town, strange club, strange people. So I wanted to know that he's safe and secure. And I left with a friend of mine to take me back to the guest house. And strangely enough, Zandre walked me down to the car. And when we got to the car, he said to me, "Mom, you the shit. I love you." And he hugged and kissed me about 3 times before I left. I was barely at the guest house, and my friend who'd taken me there came rushing in. And by then, I was in such a daze, I knew something was terribly wrong somewhere. I didn't feel well. I didn't feel that I was completely fine. And the degree of how I felt knocked out was definitely not on par with the 2 drinks I'd had before, the 3 sips from that drink. And you know, in hindsight, people put things together and then get the pieces of the puzzle to fit in together. Because initially it was thought Zandre died because he shared a hubbly with kids in the club that night. However, I was feeling as though a train had hit me, which is why I went home. I felt paralyzed, I felt ill, and I felt as though I'd been drinking for an entire night. So all I was told at that point was, "Mel, you need to come, Zandre fell." I didn't realize he was dead. So we went back to the club, and as I walked in, they had moved my son to the bathrooms because, ironically enough, there were people in the club who tried to take photos of his dead body on the floor. And I went into the bathrooms and he was lying on the floor and looked like he was sleeping. So I sat down next to him and I patted his cheek and I said, "Zandre, this is not funny," because he had such a quirky sense of humor. And I tried to wake him. And in that moment that the realization dawned on me, this child is dead. He's really, really gone. I felt the worst pain I ever experienced, or so I thought until that moment. And ironically, for some reason, I still don't understand. The first thing I did was I removed his bracelets from his arm and put them onto mine. And then I started washing that beautiful face of his. Washing his hands, washing his neck, and just holding his hand. And my mind raced because I needed a plan B. That's the way it works. So, two things happened. I heard the most excruciating noise from somewhere, from a distance. And only after a few seconds or minutes, I don't know, you lose track of time in those moments, did I realize that it was me. It was the pain and the sorrow that was screaming out of my body while I was sobbing and sobbing. And because I needed a plan, the next thought that came to me was, I'm a medium, so it will be fine. Even though he's gone, he can still reconnect with me in spirit right now. And I begged him to do exactly that because I didn't feel or see him around his body at all. And so I screamed for him to come and to just talk to me and let me know that he's still with me. And of course he didn't. And I experienced the worst rejection I ever experienced in my life. My heart was wrenched out of my chest that night as I sat on that cold tile floor with my boy. It took me about 2.5 hours, or close to 2 hours, to calm down until I just silently cried next to the body of my son. And I have such respect for that Uvambo guy from the mortuary that was there that night, because he came into the bathroom and softly he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Mama, we need to take him now. But what respect for a mother and a son to have left me there waiting outside for 2 hours or more. And I hope God blesses that guy immensely, because to this day, and probably for the rest of my journey here, I will be eternally grateful to him for that. Honoring a mother and a son and death in that way. So around 4 o'clock that morning, I phoned my ex-husband and I needed to tell him now that our baby had died. And his first reaction was to say to me, Mel, please promise me you're not going to do anything irrational. I love my boys. I live them, I breathe them, I embrace them without suffocating them. And it was natural for him to think that, because that was my baby boy. And he almost died in a car accident when he was 2. But he was given to me for another 14, 15 years after that. So how blessed is that? He could have been taken as a toddler, but I got to know him as a man. I got to share so many happy moments with him. I had my spirituality to share with him. We painted together. Zandre was an enigma. He was a legendary soul. He was a shaman. The kindest person I knew in my entire life. He was my best friend. And to this day, I miss him. Of course I do. It feels like yesterday when I tell you about this. And there are good days and bad days. There are sorrowful days, happy days. And the beauty of Zandre is, reflecting back on him and our time together, he still makes me laugh. He still makes me smile. And he still makes me feel like the most important person in his world as he was in mine. Before we left for the club, he put a newspaper clipping on my pillow. And I wanted to open it, and he said, no, Ma, open it when we get back. So I respected that, and guess what? When I got back to the guest house that morning, just after 4, I opened that newspaper clipping and it said, change is inevitable, it's what we do with it. Sorry, it's how we deal with it that's constant. Change is inevitable, It's how we deal with it that's constant. If you right now in your life are discontent with anyone you love, an ex, recently broken up, a husband, a child, but especially your child, go over there, go hug them. Because you know what? From the point where Zandre hugged me and said, Mom, you're the shit, I love you. 20 minutes later, my boy was gone, ripped from my life. I can never have him back for one more hug. I can never have him back for one more kiss on my cheek. I can never hear those words from his mouth again. I just have his essence and his memories. You have yours. You have your loved ones. Go embrace them. It's worth it.